Welcome back to the British Accent Podcast, where we talk about real-life English, real-life learning, and real-life people, like you. I'm Nick.
And I'm Emily. And today's episode is all about the power of a 10-minute English habit. Yes, just 10 minutes. Because let's face it, life gets busy. Work, family, responsibilities, they don't pause so you can sit down with a textbook for an hour.
No, they don't. But the beautiful thing about language learning is, it doesn't need to happen in long, silent stretches of study. Sometimes, just 10 focused minutes can create more progress than an hour of distracted effort.
Exactly. And when you know your time is limited, you actually train your brain to be more intentional. You stop scrolling, you stop procrastinating, you say, okay, I have 10 minutes. Let's do this.
And the magic of that mindset is, it becomes a habit. You might start with 10 minutes in the morning while drinking your tea, and before you know it, you're doing it every day. Without stress. Without guilt. Just something small you return to, like brushing your teeth.
I love that comparison. 10 minutes a day won't feel like much at first. But over time, it becomes a rhythm. A ritual. A quiet promise you make to yourself that you matter, and your goals matter, even if the day feels chaotic.
That's what makes it so powerful. You're not trying to master everything. You're simply saying, today, I'll show up. Even for just 10 minutes. And that's how real, lasting change happens, not through pressure, but through consistency.
And you can get creative with how you use those 10 minutes. You could listen to a short podcast episode, read a paragraph from an article, write a few lines in a journal, shadow a native speaker from a YouTube clip, or even talk to yourself out loud while washing your face.
It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. Your 10 minutes. Your language. Your time to reconnect with English in a way that feels doable, even on the busiest of days.
And when you collect those 10-minute moments over weeks and months, what you're really doing is building momentum. And momentum is what carries you forward, especially when motivation disappears. Because let's be honest, it will.
It always does. But habits are stronger than motivation. And a 10-minute habit? It's small enough to stick, and strong enough to build real progress over time.
Let's imagine this. You're exhausted after work. Your brain's fried. You can't even think about opening a grammar book. But what if you put on your headphones, played a 5-minute English dialogue, and listened while brushing your teeth? That's already a win.
Yes. Or maybe you're on your lunch break, scrolling your phone. You could spend 5 minutes reading a short article, then 5 more writing down 3 new words you found. That's your 10 minutes. No pressure, no perfect setting, just intention.
And those tiny moments matter more than people think. Because what you're really doing is telling your brain, hey, English is part of my daily life. Not a separate task. Not a burden. Just part of who you are becoming.
It's about identity, isn't it? When you do something every day, even briefly, it starts shaping how you see yourself. I'm the kind of person who practices English, even when I'm tired. Even when I'm busy. I don't give up on myself.
That kind of self-image is powerful. And it doesn't come from perfection or big efforts, it comes from these 10-minute check-ins. You show up. You make space. And over time, English becomes less of a mountain and more of a path you're already walking.
And it's okay if your 10 minutes look different each day. Maybe today it's reading, tomorrow it's listening, and the next day it's speaking to your dog in English while making coffee. Flexibility is your friend. Routine doesn't have to mean rigid.
Absolutely. Some people say, but is 10 minutes really enough? And we say, 10 minutes is better than 0. 10 minutes done with heart is more powerful than an hour you never start.
That's it. If all you do is keep that tiny promise to yourself each day, the progress will come. Not in a flood, maybe, but in steady drops. And those drops, they build rivers. They build confidence. They build fluency.
So wherever you are today, in traffic, folding clothes, washing dishes, know that even 10 minutes with English can shape your future. Not because it's perfect, but because it's possible. And it belongs to you.
You know what else happens with these small moments? They remove the fear. When English becomes something you touch daily, even for just 10 minutes, it stops feeling like a big, scary event. It's no longer, oh no, I have to study English for 2 hours. It's more like, okay, I'll listen to this podcast while I cook.
Exactly. It becomes natural. Familiar. And that familiarity is what reduces anxiety. It's the same way you get used to a new routine. At first it's uncomfortable, but then your brain says, oh, this again. I know how to do this.
That's why I love the phrase, low-stakes learning. You're not sitting in an exam room. You're just listening while you walk your dog. You're just reading a text message in English. There's no pressure to get everything right. You're just absorbing, living with the language.
And even those little actions, like mentally naming the objects in your room in English, or describing your morning routine aloud while getting dressed, those are valid, meaningful learning moments. They don't require extra time. Just a shift in mindset.
Yes. And people often ask, how do I stay motivated? Well, motivation comes from seeing progress. And progress isn't always about finishing a textbook, it's about noticing that today, you understood that YouTube video better than last week. Or you remembered a word without translating.
That's huge. And you don't get those wins from cramming once a week. You get them from showing up for those 10 minutes a day. Even when you're tired. Even when it's hard. Especially then.
Because every time you say, I'll just give it 10 minutes, you're practicing not just English, you're practicing consistency, resilience, belief in yourself. And that carries over into everything else in life.
And isn't that beautiful? That a short, quiet commitment, made in the middle of your busy life, can shape not only your language skills, but also your self-trust. 10 minutes can truly change everything when it becomes a habit.
And let's be honest, 10 minutes is doable. It's brushing your teeth twice. It's waiting for your coffee to brew. It's one episode of a short English vlog, or just writing a few thoughts in a journal. You don't have to move mountains, you just have to show up.
And what's cool is that those 10 minutes often turn into more, without pressure. Maybe you plan to listen to a podcast for 10 minutes, but you get curious, so you keep going for 15 or 20. That's the magic of starting small. It opens the door.
Exactly. But even if it doesn't become more, it's still enough. You still planted the seed. You still reminded your brain, hey, we're doing this. And the brain loves repetition. That's how memory is built. That's how confidence grows.
And I think people forget how confidence is created. It's not just from knowing more, it's from familiarity. It's from the feeling of, I've been here before. The more you touch English each day, the more it stops feeling foreign. It becomes yours.
That's a powerful shift, when English goes from something you study to something you live with. It's like having a quiet roommate who speaks another language. At first, you feel awkward. But then, little by little, you understand them better. You speak more. You laugh. You connect.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. English doesn't have to be a monster you fight, or a subject you dread. It can be a quiet companion in your day. And even if it's only with you for 10 minutes, that companionship builds trust, both in the language and in yourself.
So maybe today, it's just labeling things in your kitchen in English. Or repeating a few sentences while stretching in the morning. That's real. That counts. That's learning.
And tomorrow? It might be watching a video, or listening to a song, or trying to say your grocery list in English. It all builds. And it all matters. 10 minutes at a time.
And there's something so freeing about that, right? That permission to do just 10 minutes and know it still matters. You don't have to wait until you have a perfect schedule or a long block of time. You can begin now. In your real life. As it is.
Yeah, and I think that's especially important for people who feel overwhelmed by work, family, stress, whatever. Sometimes the idea of studying English can feel like just another burden. But if it becomes a short, kind moment in your day, it's less of a burden and more of a gift.
A gift you give yourself, even when you're tired. Even when your energy is low. And here's what's wild, those little sessions? They add up faster than you think. In 1 month, those 10-minute practices turn into 5 hours of real exposure. Without even realizing it.
And over 6 months. That's 30 hours of speaking, listening, reading, or thinking in English. 30 hours that came from the quiet moments of your daily life. While you folded laundry or sat on the bus.
That's why I always say, don't underestimate small efforts. The brain loves consistency. And the more consistent you are, the less resistance you'll feel. English won't feel like a task, it will feel like part of your rhythm.
You'll start noticing English naturally. Like, you'll hear a phrase in a movie and say, "Hey, I know what that means." Or you'll speak without translating in your head. It's gradual. But it's so real.
And the best part? You'll start to trust yourself more. Because every day you showed up for 10 minutes, even when life was chaotic, you proved something to yourself. You proved you care about your growth. And that you can keep promises to yourself.
And there's something really powerful about that kind of self-trust. It's not just about English, it's about who you're becoming through the process. 10 minutes a day isn't small when it's done with intention. It's a quiet kind of strength.
Exactly. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it's steady. And honestly, steady is what changes everything. You don't have to burn out to make progress. You just have to keep going, gently, a little at a time.
It reminds me of that quote, "Water cuts through rock not because of its strength, but because of its persistence." That's what your 10 minutes of English can be. Not overwhelming. Just persistent.
And the best part? You get to shape it to you. You can choose what you enjoy, songs, books, podcasts, short talks, even just thinking in English while you're brushing your teeth. It all counts.
Yes. You're not being lazy when you choose 10 minutes. You're being smart. You're working with your life, not against it. And that kind of learning lasts longer, because it respects your energy.
And honestly, we don't talk about that enough, respecting your energy. Not every day is going to feel the same. Some days, 10 minutes is all you can give. Other days, maybe more. But showing up, even in small ways, tells your brain, this matters to me.
That gentle repetition is what builds fluency. Not cramming. Not pressure. Just daily connection. Just showing up and saying, "Hello, English. I'm here again."
I love that. Hello, English. I'm here again. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. And when you show up with honesty and care, you build something that lasts. A real relationship with the language.
And with yourself. Because every time you return to English, even for a few minutes, you're also practicing patience, resilience, and kindness toward yourself. And that kind of learning changes more than your vocabulary. It changes the way you move through the world.
So if all you have today is 10 minutes, take them. Use them. Don't wait for a perfect day or a long stretch of time. That small, quiet moment can still move you forward. And the truth is, it already is.
Be proud of every effort, no matter how small. Your progress is real. Your time matters. And your English journey doesn't have to be fast to be powerful, it just has to be yours.
Thank you for spending this time with us. This has been another episode of the British Accent Podcast.
We're always here to remind you that you're doing better than you think. Keep going, and we'll see you next time.